I have the complete and total Saturday off from my cooking job, and I figured I might spend it recording a video before I run a few errands and have a little fun tonight. But I'll first take a smoke. So, I really wanted to discuss my political journey. A lot of you saw the title. InfoWars, far-right conspiracy theorist, to crazy, insane leftist. That's kind of a title, yeah. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I think I kind of have like an interesting political process going from someone who was like a traditional Catholic far-right conspiracy theorist back when I was a kid to a teen, and then suddenly becoming more of a anarchistic, more of a libertarian leftist, market socialist in general. And yeah, I figured I might share my story. So here's how it happened. A lot of you don't know that I was raised a far-right traditionalist Catholic conspiracy theorist due to my dad being a, sovereign citizen. He had this very strong, very hard, far-right, totalitarian Catholic view on society, and he wanted to really make America the new Israel, as I heard as a kid. My dad was also a carpenter. He used to be like a painter, delivery sort of guy, putting like paintings inside of like a delivery truck, delivering them, everything of that sort. And then he transitioned to carpenter and wood flooring, everything that comes with it. And the way he would talk about society and the way he would talk about religion is just fucking crazy. Like, not only that, but also he was the definition of a fucking woman hater. He hated women 120 fucking %. I'm talking about him expressing so much hatred towards women, thinking that women are only good for producing babies and to submit to him, doing everything for fucking him. I'm talking cooking, cleaning, doing everything. Well, if he were to get home from work, he would just completely relax and, of course, unwind, get super blacked out drunk on vodka and Sunny D as a kid. And when I saw this, it was my normal. It was my fucking normal. I knew it wasn't right, but honestly, your personal Overton window of what is considered radical and moderate sort of is influenced by what you were raised by in a sort of sense, whether it be going against or going for it. It does have some sort of influence, whether you like to admit it or not. And it definitely had an influence on me in a certain way, whether it be I'd be for it in a certain way or against it in a very strange way. My dad was also a major spouse beater. And also, he had bipolar disorder, unmedicated, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. My dad would also brag about lighting squirrels' tails on fire as a funny story to my uncle and my mom. This guy was a total fucking sociopath. Yet at the same time, in certain ways, he was a covert sociopath. Like he would just emotionally manipulate people in a certain way. And in a certain way, as of recently, I found out in my subconscious, I could be emotionally manipulative in certain ways, especially when it comes down to romance. And right now I'm in therapy to talk about that, nothing like major, I don't want to control women, be like, oh, you should do this for me or do that for me, blah, blah, blah. But more like in a romantic, affectionate sort of sense. And that's something that I've learned to do some self-reflection on and realize, wow, I got this shit in my system. But back to the whole political thing. I'll talk about that later in the video. When I was a kid, I used to watch some InfoWars stuff with Alex Jones, and my mom was also the kind of person that would believe in anti-GMO stuff. There's a discussion behind there, but she would also believe that the reason why I was autistic is because of the MMR vaccine back in 1999. Instead of just realizing that, hey, she could be autistic, or maybe my dad also had some neurodevelopmental disorders, she believed that it was the vaccine that caused me to be autistic. And honestly, though, looking back on it, looking back on how extreme these views are, it made me realize, wow, I was raised in a fucked up environment. And of course, between both of my parents, I love my mom. Rest in peace to her. She died a couple years ago, but yeah, I'm going to get into that later also. She was not exactly the most sane person ever. And when I tried to confront her about, her insane views, she would also, just say like, oh, don't call me crazy. Your dad used to do that too. And, well, I just stopped doing that because, well, she had a whole lot of emotional attachment issues. She was insecure. But back to the whole political journey. When I would watch Alex Jones and hears these things, it was like some secret truth, like some secret anti-establishmentarian truth that I felt like I was special. I felt like I was going against the grain, going against everything that society has told me, going against like the perceived conventional truths of society. But looking back, I was just being a crazy fucking dipshit. And then also I discovered the skeptic anti-SJW community, and come to find out that they were also liberal atheists. And, well, at the time I was like, oh, these liberal atheists disagree with feminism and disagree with SJWs. Sounds like right up my alley, because I was a tradcath fucking anti-SJW fucking piece of shit back in like the mid-2010s. Hell, before the whole tradcath thing became a fucking meme with Nick Fuentes. Mind you, Nick Fuentes and I are actually the same age. And looking back on it, it's like I started to really question my political views around the time before even the whole like skeptic community just popped off, and here we are now with the whole like, I don't know, anti-PC, anti-SJW sort of crowd just becoming a lot more of a determining like public lexicon in a sort of way. No, but honestly though, it's like what really started my political journey from the far right conspiracy theory sort of thing is when I actually went outside of that isolation, because conspiracy theories can only prosper if you socially isolate people and you happen to manipulate them. So when I talk about that, I always try to figure, and I always try to like put into the factor of social isolation and taking advantage of people's emotional vulnerability. And my dad was fucking like that. He would take advantage of people's emotional vulnerability, and he would just use it to propagate his ideas like America's the new Israel. America should be a Catholic theocracy. We should just ban abortion, put women back in their place. We should just ban homosexuality in general, execute gays and pansexuals, transgenders. We should just like subjugate different races. My God, my dad was a totalitarian piece of shit. And it wasn't just like my dad, but also some of my old family friends that I kind of really don't talk to as much. But, some of them have really like come to the light per se, most because, well, they start to realize that it wasn't just my dad, but also their dads that also espouse some of the most crazy, dangerous, abusive, and just plain old toxic bullshit. They're still conservative in a certain way, but at least they're not as crazy as like those motherfuckers. But what really started to like shift away is when I called the police on my dad for almost murdering my mom. I was a witness in courts. My mom and I, we made a promise to never go back to that sort of situation. And around that time, I really started to question, my own beliefs. I started to question the whole, like, I don't know, far-right conspiracy theory bullshit. So then I became like a conservative-ish libertarian. In the sense of like, oh, gay people are cool, but also, I don't think bakeries should like bake cakes for gays, or, I don't think we should just like, I don't know, force our taxes to fund abortion. And then, around that time, I started to really question my religious beliefs. I started to question my belief in Catholicism, Christianity, the belief in Jesus Christ and the Abrahamic God. And then, well, around that time, I consider myself like more of a deistic libertarian per se. It's like, oh, do whatever you want. I still have a pretty much like a live and let live philosophy. And then, during the time of the skeptic community, it was the 2016 election. and Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were running against each other. Donald Trump announcing that he would run in 2015, was like, oh yeah, this politically correct candidate and all that. I knew about Donald Trump due to like the whole like, I don't know, Rosie O'Donnell versus Donald Trump. I've always thought Donald Trump was kind of a douche. And, he still is pretty much a fucking douche. He's an evil, sociopathic piece of shit. But now, I thought that, he was kind of a douche for the whole, like, I don't know, Rosie O'Donnell bullshit. But, honestly, though, looking at the 2016 election, even if I thought, if Donald Trump wins, well, whatever, it would be, like, a great way to, like, get back at the SJWs and the libtards and all that. But looking back, having this whole like visceral reaction and just being like sort of like doing things that piss people off in a political sense, that's not a good way to evaluate politics. It's really not. Then, around the time when Donald Trump won, here's the thing, I didn't vote in the 2016 election. I had the chance to vote, I was born in October 1998. So do the math, in 2016, when I turned 18 in October, I had the chance to vote. But I didn't because, I don't know, I didn't really like Donald Trump all that much, even when I was an anti-SJW. But then, what really cemented I really wanted to give Donald Trump a chance on the political process, being the president and all that. I figured, he's not going to be that bad. But when he drone strikes Syria without congressional approval and also having more drone strikes than fucking Obama, I was like, yep, nope, I'm not voting for him again. This is around the time when I was still like a centrist, libertarianish sort of person. Then around the time, I found BreadTube. And, well, I was discovering issues like trans issues, LGBT issues. I was discovering, like racial issues and everything of that sort. And I started to realize where, certain liberals and progressives were coming from. It was kind of a slow process, and, I'm still in the process. I'm a leftist, but I don't agree with everything that, some leftists happen to do. Like, for example, like language policing, making everyone walk on eggshells because they said something that, is just, pretty innocent looking in the beginning, Not saying that we should just, like, I want to say, like, random slurs out of, like, the whole fucking jargon. I mean, hey, I say the F slur and the R slur because, hey, I'm autistic and pansexual. And also have PTSD and ADHD, but that's not a part of it. Anyway, around that time, I was considering myself more like a liberal per se. And then around that time, I, read up on like Peter Kropotkin, Murray Bookchin, and discovering, leftist ideologies like, anarcho-communism, libertarian socialism, and everything of that sort. And I still consider myself like a libertarian socialist, a market socialist, something of that sort. And, well, around that time, I discovered BreadTube and realized that, wow, a lot of the shit that I believed in was just fucking wrong. U.S. propaganda, especially how the U.S. during the Cold War, they would intervene with, like, South American elections when they elected a left-wing candidate during that time, and also have funded many things that I just find morally detestable, And when I started to, like, really think about how I was influenced by U.S. propaganda, and started to really think about, like, my political views and my evaluation, I was like, wow, this shit that I just never really got super into was just pinned away from me due to the fact that many people just don't want to discuss the issues of, the United States being an imperialistic force, not just in like South American countries, but also in, Eastern Europe, Russia, Western Europe, Africa. And during the Cold War, I started to really, sort of detach and really get away from the whole dichotomy of the U.S., democracy, capitalism, versus like the totalitarian aspect of like Soviet communistic Russia. And I started to realize that, wow, this sort of culture war sort of bullshit, it doesn't really help. And I decided to like be more supportive of direct democracy, labor unions, workers' rights, marginalized people's right to just exist and be respected, women's rights, LGBT rights, people of color, black people, Hispanic peoples, and their rights. And well, I started to really think about my views more and more. But another journey has really like detached from me from like online politics in general. I know I'm posting this on YouTube, so it'll definitely get into the sphere of online politics because hey, we don't live in a vacuum. But decided to like detach myself from like online politics in general because, well, it's really just like it's in the same vein as like internet drama. Oh, this creator said this or did this versus like this creator. It starts, add to this whole like, drama. And honestly, though, it just seems kind of stupid. Like social media drama mixed in with like online politics. That is one of the worst combinations that I've ever seen in my life. And also, I started to really notice that BreadTube, they were sort of like developing this sort of like morally superior sort of complex because hey, we're leftists, we have morally superior views, political views and everything like that. And yeah, they are better, but at the same time, being a leftist doesn't exactly make you automatically an all-around good person. Hell, I do view myself as like a decent person, but at the same time, I'm not without my fuck-ups. I'm not without my flaws. I can be an asshole sometimes. I try to do good. I do try to be a good person every single day. I try to view myself as like a rose with thorns because, hey, I fuck up sometimes. And also, I started to realize that, hey, I do have some toxic parts of myself. But then again, I started to really get away from BreadTube also because I don't know about you, but call out culture to me has really, turned to something like more performative rather than just something beneficial. Yeah, sure, we should call out like bigots and fascists and all that, but at the same time, it started to really turn into like, I don't know, content slop. It started to really turn into drama. And I know better. I used to do like the whole like call out culture bullshit thing for like, I don't know, a little bit of content. It was just something popping. Looking back, I was like, wow, I'm actually turning to kind of a piece of shit. And nowadays, honestly, since I'm going to therapy now to address like traumatic issues, I started to really rethink my politics. I'm still a leftist. Absolutely, yes. But at the same time, I think as leftists, we need to recognize that we're not perfect. We're not perfect at politics. We have like certain problematic parts of ourselves, and, we're always going to be problematic in some way or another. But the best thing we can do is like try to be decent people every single day. Try to do right, admit our fuck ups and everything like that. Like, I'm willing to admit my fuck ups. I'm pretty self aware about the fact that, I'm not a perfect person. And, realizing how much of a political journey going from like a very fucked up sort of cultish far right sort of ideology that still lingers with me because of trauma and social isolation that just carries on, starting my political journey to the opposite end of the spectrum, being more of a leftist, egoistic, socialistic sort of person, has really just, well, made me realize that, wow, I actually went through a very, very strange sort of journey. And, I'm not perfect at politics. I do try to be knowledgeable about, like, leftist politics, but also I do try to be also knowledgeable about other forms of politics, like anarchism, libertarianism. I also try to be more knowledgeable about fascism, conservatism, authoritarianism, I already said that. Authoritarianism, neoliberalism, liberalism in general. And I realized that politics isn't exactly as black and white as some people make it out to be. I'm not, above, black and white thinking. I've been susceptible to that. And honestly, looking back, yeah, I shouldn't be like that. But I'm human. So what the fuck have you? I think when it comes down to political journeys, you really have to test yourself. You have to remember that politics isn't perfect. And I think the one thing that we should realize is that we shouldn't be susceptible to like using, social acceptance or, sort of like, I don't know, treating politics as a social club as a way to like, I don't know, put people out or bring people in. Politics is a pretty serious issue. I mean, yeah, sure, there's political comedy, which, I'm pretty mixed about. It's like, one hand, there's great political satire. On the other hand, a lot of it is pretty much like, I don't know, default, preachy, like, we're right and you're wrong, or, just bullshit like that. But, I don't know, that's just my assessment. Like, I do recognize that, I am talking about my personal experiences as someone who used to be, part of the whole, like, anti-establishment, far-right sort of bullshit. And now I'm part of the anti-establishment sort of far-left. And there's a whole lot of things that I can criticize leftists for. And that sort of thing just comes into fruition. My cigarette is out. But at the same time, when I criticize certain things, I try to criticize in the sense that we should just make improvements, not just politically, but also socially. And of course, we want to have a better society where our certain ideas can actually just come into fruition. At the same time, though, American politics has become a major absurd fucking joke. I mean, have you seen some of the memes around, like, American politics? I mean, shit. It's become one big fat fucking joke. Oh. Hey, how you doing? Now I'm just saying hi to my neighbor. With that being said, though, politics is just so... It's complicated. It's complicated, and I'll fully admit, I'm not the most knowledgeable at it. I do try to, keep up. I try to refresh myself on my ideas. What is wrong with my fucking tongue? But that sort of journey just really stamps into the fact that not a lot of us can actually just be, completely politically perfect. Hell, I'm not politically perfect. Not at all, no. I'm still on that journey in my politics, trying to figure out, okay, what works the best, what doesn't work. Hell, maybe sometime in the future I'll have a different political mindset, depending on, my personal life experiences. And that's something that we really had to take into account. It's not just factual information or reading books, but also life experience and our social interactions. That comes into play when it comes down to politics. I've always known that. I mean, hell, being socially isolated back at that time, that really influenced my politics in a certain way. And now that I've become a lot more social and I have more of a social life, have my own personal life experiences, not becoming more independent, yeah, it also influenced my political views in a certain sense. So, yeah, for now, I'm just still going on that journey, still thinking a lot, and surely hope that a lot of you will be able to share your own political experiences with me. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. You have a good one.